Imagine being told that tomorrow is your wedding day. Your family has prepared the clothes. The ceremony has been arranged. The relatives are waiting. Everyone expects you to become a bride. But there is one problem. Your husband has been dead for weeks. You have never spoken to him. You have never held his hand. You have never even seen him alive. And yet, tomorrow, everyone will call you his wife. This sounds like the beginning of a ghost story, but in parts of historical China, forms of what we now call ghost marriage or spirit marriage were real traditions. And the strangest part wasn't simply marrying someone who was dead, it was why people believed the marriage still mattered. Our story follows a fictional young woman we'll call May. May is around 18 years old. She lives with her family in a small community where marriage isn't simply about two people falling in love. A marriage connects families. It can affect status, property, inheritance, and the relationships between generations. And in a world where family responsibilities could continue even after death, marriage could have a meaning far beyond what we understand today. But May doesn't know any of that yet. All she knows is that one evening, her parents tell her something that makes her stomach drop. She's getting married. May expects to hear the name of a young man. Instead, her father quietly says, "He is already dead." At first, May thinks her father is joking. He isn't. The young man had died before he could marry, and his family believes something is still missing. He died unmarried, no wife, no household connection through marriage, no bride standing beside him in the rituals his family expected. To modern people, that can sound completely irrational. But historical societies didn't always separate life, death, family, and ritual the way we do today. For some families, a deceased unmarried person could still remain part of the family's social and spiritual world, so a marriage could be arranged even after death. Not because the dead man was literally coming back to life, but because the relationship itself was believed to have meaning. And that's when May realizes something terrifying. This isn't really about what she wants, it's about what everyone else believes must happen. The wedding day arrives. May is dressed as a bride. Her clothes are carefully prepared. Her family performs the expected rituals. But the groom isn't standing beside her. There is no nervous young man waiting for her. There is no hand for her to hold, no voice whispering promises, no future husband looking back at her. Instead, the ceremony uses a symbolic representation of the deceased groom. Depending on the time, place, and specific tradition, ghost marriages could take different forms. There wasn't one universal ceremony that every Chinese family followed, but the central idea was similar. A marriage could symbolically connect a living person with someone who had already died. And that distinction matters, because this wasn't simply a woman marries a ghost. It was a ritual designed to create or complete a social and family relationship. May looks at the place where her husband is supposed to be, and for the first time, she understands something. There is no future she can imagine with him, no conversation, no ordinary wedding night, no growing old together, no arguments, no laughter, no children growing up knowing both parents. She has been given the title of wife, without ever being given a husband. But why would her family agree to something like this? This is where the story becomes more complicated because it wasn't necessarily as simple as evil parents forcing an innocent girl into a bizarre ceremony. Historical marriage systems could involve intense family expectations, economic considerations, property, social status, and obligations between households. Marriage could connect entire families, not just two individuals. For May's family, refusing could mean conflict. For the dead man's family, the marriage could mean something entirely different. They might believe their son should not remain unmarried. They might want the family relationship completed. They might want someone officially connected to him. And in a world where family duty carried enormous weight, saying no wasn't always easy. May not be physically locked inside a room, but social pressure can create a prison without walls. After the ceremony, everyone congratulates May. They call her a wife. They tell her she has done the right thing. They tell her the family is proud. But when the celebration ends, she goes home alone. And that's when the reality hits. She has participated in a ceremony that everyone else considers meaningful, but her own life hasn't magically become easier. She still has to live. She still has to deal with grief. She still has a future ahead of her. And now she is connected to a family through a husband who can never speak to her. This is what makes the story so uncomfortable. The strangest part isn't the ghost, it's the human beings who are still alive. And here's something important. Ghost marriage traditions weren't always simply about forcing a living woman to marry a dead man. There were different forms and different circumstances. Sometimes both people were deceased. Sometimes a deceased person was symbolically married to a living person. And the reasons could vary depending on the community and historical period. So we shouldn't imagine one giant ancient rulebook saying, every dead unmarried man needs a wife. History was much messier than that. But the underlying idea tells us something fascinating about the societies that practice these traditions. Marriage wasn't always viewed only as a private relationship between two individuals. It could be part of a much larger network of family obligations. The dead could remain socially important, and family responsibilities didn't necessarily end when someone died. Now imagine being May. You wake up one morning, your wedding clothes are still hanging in the room. The ceremony is over. Your relatives believe everything has been settled, but you know something they don't. Your life has just been connected to someone whose life is already finished. And you begin wondering, did I actually choose this? Or did everyone simply decide that this was what I was supposed to do? That question is more frightening than any ghost, because ghosts don't make decisions for you. Living people do. To understand these traditions, we have to stop looking at them entirely through a modern lens. For many historical communities, family wasn't just about parents and children living under one roof. It could extend across generations. Marriage could change kinship relationships. It could affect obligations toward relatives. It could influence property and inheritance. And rituals surrounding the dead could be deeply important. So when we hear, someone married a dead person, the historical question isn't simply, why were they so strange? The better question is, what did marriage mean to them? And once you ask that, the story becomes much more understandable. Because maybe the ghost was never the real point. Maybe the dead groom wasn't the person controlling the situation. The real power belonged to the people still alive, the parents, the relatives, the community, the traditions, the expectations. And that's why calling this simply a ghost story misses the most interesting part. The supernatural element might sound frightening, but the human element is what makes it disturbing. A person could be given a role before they were given a choice. Centuries later, we can look back at ghost marriage and immediately think, how could anyone possibly agree to that? But history is full of customs that made sense to the people living inside them, and seem completely unbelievable to us today. That's why the story of the ghost bride isn't really about ghosts, it's about family. It's about duty. It's about tradition. And most importantly, it's about what happens when society decides what your life should look like before you get to decide for yourself. May never got the wedding most people dream about. There was no groom waiting for her, no future they could build together, no ordinary life after the ceremony. But there was something even stranger. Everyone around her believed the marriage had meaning. And perhaps that's the darkest lesson of all. A ghost may be invisible, but the expectations of the living can be impossible to escape.